Hello everybody, thank you all very, very much for your patience. Let me just get my... Where's the tab? Let me get my notes up. There we go. Hello everybody, I hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a nice weekend so far. Week! Nice week so far. I'm doing well, and again, thank you for your patience. I was having some internet issues, and facing those requires truly going up once one of my greatest enemies, making phone calls. Hello everybody, hi Simon, hi EB, hi King, hi Acadia, hi Hydra Fighter, hi Come Stranger. Yes, hope you're all doing very, very well, and of course, as always, thank you for joining me. It's always nice. It's always very heartening that people come to like these talky streams just to hear me talk. Hi Buckle. Oh, hello Syrup. I'm a very old man. Hi Curry Nice. Welcome. So I started... Hello. I started by... So we're gonna start with the updated tier lists. I started by just putting everyone where they were at the end of last season, which was fun. You had better yet, like there's no tomorrow. We'll see. I don't think that tier lists will be as like I think the version of this stream I did like at the end of last season, I don't think the tier lists will be as long. Just because it's more of an update versus rating every character. There's not as much to say this time except for a few characters. But we definitely been waiting quite a while to talk about Dream of the Red Chamber stuff. Yeah, so here's where my tier list was last time. I spent a while doing like a big long disclaimer that like that still remains true. I love every character, but I had to at least make the minimum B tier. And also we're just doing the sinners. For this, or at least the main sinners, not including Dante, are playable fighting characters. I love everyone. They're all perfect and perfect for the story, and I love all their dynamics. I wouldn't change anything about anyone, you know. And I'm always interested in hearing about other people's favorites as well. So please feel free to bring it up. Let's see. So there's not actually gonna be like huge changes here. I can't remember much about Ryoshu, because this is like considering everything that happened in like the past seasons, not just like Canto 7, but the Intervalos, the like other events, I guess Uptie stories, April Fools, and we had some good events for this, particularly because like the checkup event. The checkup event was good for giving everybody a bit of content. But like, not a main character for any of this. Otis actually got quite a bit here. A bit of like interesting nuggets. Oh, honestly, from what you've shown me of the game, the only one who I actually dislike is Ryoshu. She's so mean. She fits in very well with this universe. There are a lot of... I'm so curious for... Because she's like... She's being written very interestingly, because like she herself like keeps her cards very close to her chest, but a lot of her writing is sort of like more implicit, even if you're like not familiar with Hellscreen. The big themes of family have like come through a lot, even if she hasn't been necessarily open with it. I think that's like an interesting way of handling the character, but she is one of the ones... I don't know, I'm always curious about popularity polls because they vary so much. We've had like some different... We had like the little Korean one. I call it little because I don't think 2,000 is a huge amount of people. We had the different... When the plushies were being sold, we had the different... animate stores having you could see which one sold the best, but again that's not necessarily like a definitive rating of characters, because again, you're looking at the subset of people who will order order plushies of characters. And like in that case, I would not be surprised about Dawn being very high up, because she's like I feel like she like fits the plushie form more than some of the other characters. I can't remember. I think Ryoshu was quite, it tends to be quite popular in a lot of those, and like the last like big thing we had was oh, Dawn is very marketable, exactly. I'm still surprised we haven't gotten like a pin set of all of her pins. It's hard to not like Don Quixote. Yeah, we'll get there. I'm trying to remember. I actually don't have on me Escu having one of them. And then there was like another like general Project Moon. Someone on Twitter did one, which is kind of interesting. But again, when you're confined to like just one, like I guess format, population, they're never going to be that representative. But I would be curious to like compare the like popularity among like different countries, for instance. That's always interesting. I don't remember where Ryoshu falls in that, but I do think when I put her here, again, it's not out of any sort of dislike. My general feeling is like, I think by the time, anytime someone gets a Kanto, they'll like rise. I'm just not as big a fan of like her interest in Carnage. I'm sure she will rise just because I'm so curious about her approach to art and what that's gonna be like. Like our dynamic with Sinclair, I used to really not like Otis at all, but after Canto 7, I think she's number 5 for me. Canto 7, like, she didn't have a huge role, but the little bits that we get were so good. Her little moment, like, towards the end, after she's, like, saying we can't trust Sancho, and she's, like, asking Dante if someone could still be forgiven no matter how many they've killed. That's, like, such a good moment. What are we having this in consideration, this tier list? Power, backstory, design, potential ships. My personal favorites. And again, I do sort of all things sort of go into consideration, but again, people are irrational. I don't even think you need like much justification for having a favorite character. I think I talked for over an hour about Ishmael in the first one. Oh, what's this list for? My favorite characters. Sort of in order. Yeah, this is pretty much the order. And then she just has fun moments. Her everything in like the checkup was fun, and there was just a nice bit of the thing I talked also about in the first time is sort of this like, we've suspected her of being sort of the traitor from like pre-release ever since it turned out she was Odysseus. Didn't think I'd see someone being that low. Nobody is low, everybody is high. I love everybody. And I thought like the sweeper event was a good sort, and then my sort of feeling about that is like there's not actually that much evidence, and I'm sort of I don't know what to make of like how everybody memes that. I don't know how I feel about that point. I did feel like Sweeper did a lot of approaching that sort of comedically. Saying that's not necessarily the case, and it's like gonna be more complicated than that. Like, I could see her, I mean, I could see a lot of characters as like part of a Canto, like going against Dante at different points, but I don't have like the big, it's all building up to something at some big traitor moment at this point. But people will meme. Honglu, I'm not moving yet. I'm not moving yet, but I'm keeping an eye on him because, like, despite getting a lot of good moments, it's still so much setup for him. Even if he had an entire Kanto character arc in Canto 7, there hasn't been like enough for me to like really like grasp onto as much, but definitely I'm sitting here with him. Oh yeah, Honglu himself isn't super interesting yet, but his themes are very interesting. Exactly. I really like Baoyu when reading Dream of the Red Chamber, although he's not necessarily my favorite character. But I loved him, I loved his roles, I loved his whole development, his story. I like this sort of aspect to his character where, like, empathy for people is, like, a form of rebellion that comes up. I'm tentatively leaving him here, but I can see him making a big jump when the time comes to be the most animated sinner. I'm very curious about all that. And everyone else is pretty consistent here. If you haven't explained it yet, what makes your rank Ishmael at the top? We'll get there, but I probably won't go over it as much of. I did one of these streams at the end of the last season, and I talked for an hour about why I liked her so much. So I don't totally want to reiterate all of that. I don't have all my notes on me because I just went on forever and ever and ever. Yeah, no worries. Greg got a little bit. He's still Rhodia, everyone's consistent. Sinclair's consistent. Rhodia's been like consistent. Greg got like a little bit going on. But like at least they show why they haven't forgot him, and we got to give him potential man. However, I still feel like there's like missed potential. I think I talked about this in the last one as well, where he's the one. Like he's visibly a smoke war veteran, and there's a lot that's sort of like is brought up in the first Canto about like his people being visibly, the whole cockroach thing is visible, and he gets recognized and people get freaked out about it, like in the warp intervallo, and that never really gets brought up, and I think that's like a really interesting aspect that could be explored, but it just hasn't yet, where he fell down from like S to A, but it was again just lack of potential. Lack of like proper exploration with that. But I'm happy for him to just sit here until things come back round, you know? He'll get his time. Song's the same. Everyone again, Heathcliff and Faust sort of sit where they're sitting in the same place. I just really like all of them. And then I thought about it. I think what we're gonna do is do this. Or maybe it should be like, yeah, there we go. This icon like, is this icon like shorter? Why does she have a bar under there? Oh, because I made the, well now it does make her look shorter. It's because I make this one too bigger. Now she can look shorter. But I love Don Quixote. I mean, as you can see, she's my second favorite character from Probably even at the end of last season. On with the color title, I know! Tequila Sunset. There's actually some very interesting parallels with Disco Elysium, but that would be disco spoilers, so I won't get into that. But I think that's really interesting. What I said in the last stream as well was just... Oh, actually, just look at my notes again. Otis believes in phrenology. That knocks her down a little bit. I like how Don Quixote like sort of represents one of Project Moon's big themes about like hope. Always to have hope in the face of despair. Always believe. Always have a dream. Where does Sancho place in comparison to Oblivion Don Quixote? They're in the same slot. I was a little worried going into Canto 7. I guess we'll talk about this when I'll have more details when I do the like Canto tier list. That they might try to like deconstruct that mindset a little too much for my liking, because I didn't want them to like break her down, for instance. But no, at the end of it, she just sort of reiterates her identity that she's Don Quixote because she wants to be, because she really does believe in, she likes all the fixer stuff, she does believe in the impossible dream. And I love that for her. I think it's like basically exactly what I wanted from her character and her characterization. And I like where she, and Sancho herself is, not that they're different characters, but the Sancho characterization is really compelling as well. I like them both. Like even if they're separate characters, I would rank them both highly because they're both sort of characters I like. I guess like similar sort of, kind of compare the like more deadpan to Ishmael even. And then you combine them, and when she breaks character, that's fun. But when it's done in the serious moments, I adore that. The one towards the end of the sweeper event where she's like, "Don't rush me." Oh, I can't wait for that one to be voiced. I'm like so amazed how well they like are able to pull it all off. She's an incredible character, and I think she deserves all her popularities, and she's gonna continue to like stay super popular, I think. I can't really think of like any other like characters in comparison. She sort of has the like, I guess in like, if you watch anime, she sort of has the Chunibyo personality a little bit, which is always a kind of, which is like a character type that I think can get a little annoying depending how it's written. But in the context of like this world, to have somebody like so genuinely deeply believed in this, the part that really sticks out to me is towards the end of the warp event, where she says she'll just keep telling them stories. Even if they get trapped, she'll tell them as many stories they need to like get through it. Just the sort of belief in goodness. I was thinking, like trying to think of like Chunibyo, Yohane from Love Live Sunshine was probably, if you asked me to rank the characters in Love Live Sunshine, Yohane would probably be at the bottom. But like, Dawn also has the Chunibyo thing, but it's like, it's such a nice contrast to everybody else, and to like, that there's like, it comes from this deep set belief in hope and love almost. I love that. And even when reality comes back crashing down, it's still worth it to fight for that. You know? Checking my notes. Some of this I guess I'll save for, some of this sort of just is mixed in with like Canto 7. And then I don't have a whole lot new to talk about Ishmael. She's... Oh yeah, it's really refreshing since many of Tetsu's characters that live long lives be nihilistic. And her and her father were just too good. It would be impossible for me to like rank the... I guess the like, not villains, but the Kanto antagonists, because they really knocked it out of the park with all of them. Looks at maybe like the first three. I don't particularly like Cromer. They're also after Ahab, I was like, they peaked here. They kept making them so good and interesting. Like I couldn't. I still love Dongrang. Ahab's incredible. I mean, Earl King's Heathcliff. And Don Quixote, for a character, one of those characters that despite not having that much screen time, just absolutely steals the show. So Ishmael's still at the top. There's nothing too new with her. I feel like the moment that stands out for me in terms of her development, again, she's in a weird place as like the character has pretty much the most complete arc. Because well, she does have sort of like Ahab is still around, but Ishmael doesn't know that she's on Herman's team now, and you don't really know what that's all building to. Ishmael's in a weird spot writing-wise. The one bit I quite liked was in the checkup event where like Ryoshu kind of calls her out for like her harpoon getting dull, and I like that sort of idea that she hasn't really found where to point it at again. And even if she doesn't need to point it, honestly, but she hasn't really found that goal in life again, which is sort of back, sort of where her arc before she's even joined the Pequod started. So I like that. The bit I haven't super been, see, I think where did I write this down? The bit that I haven't super been liking about her writing is I don't mind that she's mean. I just don't find like her meanness consistent in the way that she was written beforehand. One thing I really like about her characterization is like how well it expresses her difficulties with OCD, and like a lot of her jabs came from, again, the like people not being prepared, people not listening to the plan. Like that's where she lost respect for Dante, is like after Canto 2. But even despite that, she still tried to keep everything going. She just wasn't that warm to people. I do feel like it's sort of been acknowledged with the fact that how can you not be mean when you're on a bus with all children? That's fair. There's just a consistency to when it came out, to when those jabs came out. But I guess it's sort of being acknowledged because, like Dante says, I don't like how they're all being so mean to Heathcliff. It's still sort of a disappointment in Canto 5 that like, or Canto 6, that they're, again, it's not a shipping thing. When I say relationship, it doesn't mean romantic, but like their relationship didn't really progress, that there wasn't like didn't form a complete circle going from Canto 5 to Canto 6. And that was never really acknowledged. It's the same thing with like the manual joke. Again, I think the need for preparation is a really interesting aspect for a character, but now they've done so much with the manuals that it's become a bit of a joke, and I don't love that as much. But sort of a thing that I think in general happens with games, like I'm a Persona fan, clearly. We've all, if you played any of like the spin-offs when there's like a huge cast, sometimes characters just get watered down to like maybe one or two traits, and hers seems to be meanness. But she also does need like, we do need like a place. Her character, we haven't like progressed to a new place with her character. Flanderization, that's the word I was thinking of. So, and it's not just her, again, it's like the everybody being mean to Heathcliff kind of thing. Although it hasn't really been elaborated on, but post Canto 6, we've never sort of talked about what is the what did they... Yeah, to be fair, we don't really know the rest of Sinners Who Wrote Canto 6 went. Exactly, what did they see? We have no idea what their perspective of it was. Was it just... Was it just like, they go in, Heathcliff distorts for no reason? They beat him up and leave? Like, there has to be some version, and I don't really know of his resolution. I think that's really interesting, but I want to know what happens. And I think that's a really interesting aspect of, like, a character having development and nobody remembering it. So they're sort of back to square one. They probably just remember a bunch of mean rich people. I want to know, though. I'm pretty sure they just don't remember Catherine, but if they... I don't know how they... It seemed they'd still fight Heath in their memories, or okay... Yeah. It's just when she's, like, so integral to all of it, I don't know, like, what it all... all amounts to. Still fight Heath. That makes... Yeah, a lot of it can still happen. I guess it just, like, makes his motivation to them much more unclear. Which, again, is an interesting... Why was he just trying to get... If the whole thing was, like, they just remember... If they just remember, his alternative self wanting revenge on everybody, and that's what they have to beat out of him, and they see that potential. I think that's interesting, but again, I want to see it elaborated on. But again, there's so much content. Yeah, that's generally where we're left off. I don't have like a whole lot new to say about a lot of the characters, but love everybody. These are all the top tiers. I can't imagine anybody bumping Ishmael from the top tier, though. She's a very, very special character to me. And she has been for a long time. But I have room in my heart for Don Quixote as well. But I love everybody. I'm super excited to see... Why not raid Dante? It's hard. When doing this, it's hard. I don't think I'm very bad at making comparisons when, like, the base is so different. They're a very different kind of character. It's hard to really... It's hard for me to, like, fit them into this chart. Because I like them, but the way that their development is handled, and they haven't had a Canto. I don't know. I mean, if you forced me to, it probably would be like... I don't think I'd take them over any of the sinners, but I like all of them as well. My list is almost over, so I see that's what's so interesting. Such good characters. Everybody is very varied in their favorites, and I love that. I mean, I think everybody loves Don Quixote. Maybe, although I think there were probably, like, people that didn't like her beforehand for what they would have considered her annoying, but I think particularly now it's like she's a very difficult difficult character. Faust is one. I need to remember, because like Escu's list, which was from like pre-Canto 7, also had like people could vote for like their most dislike sinner as well. And Faust's is a bit more Marmite, I would assume. Let's move on to... So I didn't set this one up. Let me just... this in order. Kind of. Let me just put this back to where it was at the end of the last. I couldn't the tier list, the exact tier list. Let's put the Christmas event on F. Well, I don't think this is surprising. I didn't have like the exact. I like the card pack ones, but like it's interesting trying to go through all. I was going through all the tier list trying to find one that was updated. And there isn't actually that many. Let's see. Canto 3, Yield My Flesh. Canto 2, Canto 1. I am one of those people. I guess kind of rare, but people that actually rates Canto 2 above 1. I'm killing time. Okay, that must be C. Murder. Hell's Chicken. And then Canto 5. 6, 4. Okay. That's where we left off last time. But we did get reruns this season. So let's talk about start with the reruns actually. I'm not gonna change their placements, even if I do appreciate them more. I mean, Miracle's fun. I would put it as the weakest of any story event that we've had, but it's still fine. It's interesting to go back to it because now that we've had to go back to it after having played Canto 6, just because we have a little bit more context, but there's nothing there's no really deep foreshadowing or anything. I'll say this many times, but I do like any sort of event that splits our sinners up into smaller groups. Dawn and Heath are a good combo. I like their characterization together, and it does have really genuinely funny moments. And I think these comedic ones benefit the most from voice acting. It really helps sell. I was laughing. I was laughing throughout it when I was replaying it. Dawn has the line about being turned into oh, what did she say? She's turning into a rocking horse or something that rises with every fall. that one always makes me laugh. And she has such a gremlin in this one. But nothing to really add. It is, oh, what did I say? I did think one of my personal, it's not an issue, my personal feelings about it is I find it harder to care about the outskirts at the moment. I think it's just our lack of connection with lack of emotional connection with our cast. The outskirts is of course interesting, but at the same time, at this very moment, I'd rather be spending time learning about our characters or learning about the city. That's a very personal preference right at the moment. It doesn't really what we learned didn't do much for our characters either. I feel Outskirts will connect more, and absolutely, Outskirts is definitely will be very relevant, and it is a fascinating concept, but in the context of this story, it didn't do very much for me. Hey, tea time. Yield My Flesh. Another one I'd say I do appreciate it more now because you can absolutely see not just how much it is setting up, but how much it has to set up. You're introduced Blade Lineage Kurokuma, which just conceptually could probably carry the whole intervala, but we're also doing sort of a little bit of the politics of T-Corp. We have to establish all this stuff about distortion, about Limbus Company itself and how it operates. It has a lot to juggle. But I feel my biggest yeah, it's not an issue. My personal feeling that like could have made it stronger was just like the fact that the lack of Kim backstory, the fact that it's like almost entirely contained to the most interesting parts are contained to Merceau's Uptai story. And I think Kim's backstory is really has a lot of potential here. Like this idea of a leader of a group of misfits who accidentally led his team to death. Like there's an interesting parallel with Dante there. I think you could have worked with. And then, because when we get LCB regular checkup, we actually get some like backstory and storytelling in the dungeon that we don't really get at all in Yield My Flesh. And also, this character, this is almost like our first, not our first, because we have it in C, but a character who had experience with the library, and a very bad experience with the library. I want to see like more of that, the real like what it was, getting like the guest experience of visiting the library and just getting slaughtered. I want to see more of that. So I'm not, even if I appreciate it a little bit more, I would not put it above Canto 3, which might not be fair. But it does have really good music. Oh yeah, when I was replaying it, I was like, I feel bad that Jun, I think, as like the strongest for barely being around, has like the most character of anyone here, and I felt kind of bad about that. I remember, I don't think it's from, yeah, Engdu. Engdu, I just was another like sort of missed potential. I feel like she could have been a little bit like stronger characterization wise. When I was playing it again, people are calling her a jobber. And it's not really something I noticed as much on the first time, but yeah, playing it again, we're running into every single fight. Starting off in the Yamcha pose is not really where you want to begin your story. But there were good moments. So that's the rerun. Should we do... Tens Vigor wasted characterization? Exactly. I guess I'll talk about that now. Right now, like, the three most recent Cantos are really hard for me to, like, rate. They're quite close. It was very hard for me to make the decision between 5 and 6, because I really loved them a lot. And then it came to now we have to fit Canto 7 in there. And I thought about it, and I wrote down... I started making these notes, the like note document that I have up, like, as we were playing through Canto 7. So I could have some of it fresh, and I could come back to it and have like adjusted things as we came back to it. And I'm going to put Canto 7 here. And part of that is, I do remember after finishing part 2, although I was enjoying it, I was very distinctly remember thinking, I don't think right now this is as strong as Canto 5 or 6, and part 3 is really going to make or break the overall story. It's really going to depend how it all comes to a head, and how it's gonna... Is it gonna nail the landing? And it absolutely does. I got everything I wanted from a part 3. I do think it has like the strongest... Does it? Yeah, I would give it like my favorite finale of any any of the Cantos right now. I mean, it does have, maybe it's not fair because it does have more production value for the Millie moment, but like everything about it is just pitch perfect. And I still sort of, I think I talked about this when playing Canto 7, that my little problem was that Dawn herself sort of takes a bit of the back seat for the first two parts. And part of that is just because they are sort of written into a corner a little bit, where us, the players, the audience, knows this big reveal, and she doesn't. Well, in Canto 5 or 6, we spend a lot of time throughout all three parts, like in Heathcliff and Ishmael's head, and those are some of Ishmael's like monologues, as we learn her backstory, are really some of my favorite writing in the game. And we don't really get any of that in part 1 or 2 of Canto 7. Instead, it's sort of told through these stories, which are plays, which is a really interesting way of doing it. But I miss that. And we sort of have like, we end up with like Sinclair doing it, like doing sort of the explaining how she feels for us a little bit, and like Honglu as well. What I really wanted, again, this is always my personal feelings to like what I like from stories, was like having a more of a downward spiral for her. And we get like those little like black screen flashbacks, which feel a bit more like, oh, what is this mystery, versus like an actual like exploration of her mental state. Instead of Dawn in the first two parts, we got the whole La Mancha land. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. We're developing La Mancha land. But in the end, we got a lot of Don Quixote psychology, or Sancho, I should say, in part 3. And I think it's amazing, like, with all these, I mean, like, I guess all of them, their main bosses don't really appear till either part 3 or like partway through part 2. So Sancho doesn't become a character exactly until the end, but it's still absolutely that they absolutely make the most of their runtime. And look at my notes, here we are. Here I'm just talking about Dawn again. I wrote missed opportunities with side characters. Which I guess we were talking a little bit about in chat. There's a lot of time, like, and again, like, I'm empathetic to that there's a lot that Cantos have to accomplish, and not everything is gonna necessarily pay off. But again, it comes down to like missed potential, or like plot points that don't necessarily come to a head, I would say. And that's like all the fixers generally that are introduced. And one of the interesting things, if you're playing them at the same time as like everybody else, and like after you finish you go and read the speculation, one of the things that came up was the fact that when you fight against Camille and Paula, once they've been like turned into roses, I think the sprite for Paula doesn't actually match what she's wearing, so there's a lot of theories that like that wasn't actually her. So I was sort of waiting for that to again like pop up again. Maybe in one of the intervalos, then that didn't happen. That sort of thing. You have like people come up with theories that, well, I guess that was kind of the problem when like, if you remember early access Ruina, there was a whole thing about the T-Core box that didn't end up, that they get from the warp train, that didn't end up mattering in the end, and then people were like kind of mad that it didn't end up mattering, and like director actually had to actually address it in one of the messages. So not every plot point is necessarily gonna pay off, but I still feel like it got paid off as a joke through. It's like that's fair. That is fair. It worked for me. I really laughed. So I don't know if it's ever fair to really like talk about missed potential, because maybe it was never, you're setting yourself up for something, but it does feel like the Camille fight when you're starting out with the duel with Don Quixote, and that never really. I think I saw like different theories about how either he would actually come save us, or do we have to save him, or would Sancho have to fight him, like when Dawn gets her powers back. You know. Just reading. Yeah, mixed opportunities with the side characters is what I wrote. Yeah, and with like the blood feed hunters, they're super cool. They have amazing designs and don't really, and that does feel like sort of part of the point, that they just get completely bodied. But could have at least gotten a 3-star unit. But still, I loved it. Like, if you ask me to, I have a lot of affection for like different parts of all of the stories. So putting it, I would say like 5, 6, 7. They're very close. A little bit of a gap for 4, because I feel like 4 it took some time, is like more lows, but still absolutely amazing highs. Sounds like a downgrade to A tier. I mean, part of the Canto 5 thing is just because I adore Ishmael. But I mean, between the 3 of them, I do feel like it's some of the most consistent. There's some bits of Canto 6 I've cooled on a little bit as time has gone by. Not that I don't love Canto 5, it was rather one-dimensional. No, I respect that. I think it's one of the more like straightforwardly plot-wise. I just think what it tries to do, it executes very well, and I give big points again for one bit in the dungeon. There's an event where you can choose to like look under the boat, and if you do that, Ishmael gets a sanity boost, and you can like repeatedly do that, but then it ends up not mattering because of her compulsion passive throughout it. And I thought like that's just such a subtle an interesting way of like representing like her OCD and like the compulsive behavior, and even when you're doing your compulsions, it doesn't like fix the problem. It doesn't end up making you feel better at the end. So there's little bits like that I super appreciate. And I think when I think back on it, I feel like Canto 5, I feel like it had a little bit more for the other characters to do. Like Otis is pretty present throughout. There's little bits with Rhodia towards the beginning where Ishmael ends up being like, we're not that close. I feel like a lot of the events, I've seen the complaints that a lot of the events like don't actually mean much to like the entirety of the Canto. For instance, like the whole Ricardo event, but I do think they do all have something to say about Ishmael and her characterization. That's what I appreciate. Here's a story. I'd say my rankings of 4, 7, and 5, 6. 5, 6 are pretty equal. Yeah. I'd say so too. It's quite hard. 'Cause some of these I can definitely order, and then like I feel like because I've ordered these lower ones, I have to order the rest of them. But it's hard, they're quite close. Okay, scrolling, reruns, checkup event. This one's again hard for me. I'm looking at my notes. I don't think I actually placed it in the end. I'll make the decision right now and put it here, but it and Time Killing Time are really close. I'd say B. For me, it just does a lot of... Oh, it's really hard. Because there's aspects I do think Time Killing Time might just be like stronger overall. But in terms of my personal enjoyment, I really loved Regular Checkup. It just did so many things I liked and was fun. It was... Sorry, one more drink. Oh, I forgot to bring a water bottle. That's a problem. It was super lore focused. Oh yeah, Time Killing has to be S just for music. Fair enough. Time Killing Time probably has my favorite soundtrack, and then probably Feel My Flesh. But I know the Time Rippers theme. Is it still the outside of Millie's songs? It's probably is like my favorite boss track. LCB is just fun. Like, if you don't care about the lore, all that like lore dumping, it's probably not that interesting for you. I'm surprised they actually did a straight up tier list there, power ranking. I'm usually swayed by callbacks to LobCorp. Me too. Me too. You just put in the LobCorp music and I'm happy. I was surprised, like, again, after Yield My Flesh, how much story we still got even in the dungeon. But the part that does sort of bump things up as well is the gameplay. Again, breaking up sinners, smaller groups, interesting combinations, using the Pekatula for different gameplay challenges. Love that all, love that all. Great soundtrack. Little Sancho thing in the middle. I guess it's a bit past the middle maybe. Really, really compelling. Just did so much that I really enjoyed from it. Hohenheim, not a bad boss. When they first revealed that the like preview for the Faust ID, and when I realized what it was, because I was like, what is this? And when you realized that it was like an ego suit, and like that just opened up that ego suits can probably come back, not just with like the new abnormalities as well. Oh, that was like, made me so excited. I retract my praise of the interval. I'm still mad the slop. I would be too. It's one of... I totally respect people who struggled with it, because you do kind of need certain IDs for different parts. And you're limited. Your team building's really limited. I also like the detail in Warp that the alarm sounds every time Warp Corp uses ID. Yes, me too. I could see when Warp gets its rerun, I can also see it possibly jumping. Because like one of my critiques of it was like the lack of voice acting for such an important character moment, but we'll see. And Cassetti I had mixed feelings about as a villain, but like during Canto 7 I was like, I take it back. Now that we have the context, I like him a lot more. Quixote's voice is... I'm quite excited for it just because there's different ways you can go with it. I don't know really which way they'd... I feel like you can make him really whiny or do like a more serious voice. Time Killing Time is the next to get its voice. Should be. Oh yeah, we still don't know the culprit of that warp train issue. Yeah, good point. I kind of forgot about that. That's not that we did actually... We solved Quixote, but people on other warp trains are disappearing. And then I wonder what kind of units we could get, particularly from Time Killing Time. Rhodia, I guess. She did get like a T-Corp unit, but should get something. And then Heath could use a better like self-tremor unit. Sweeper event. Sweeper event. Where did I put you? I'm just looking at it. I'm thinking about it as I look at my placement. We'll put it... I guess I'll stick with this for now. I don't know if this is controversial. I did not love the sweeper event. I liked it. I had a good time with it. But it does come down to like similar, I guess some similar issues that I had with Yield My Flesh, where it feels more like a prologue or setting things up than necessarily having its own sort of like through line. And I guess that's something, when I come back to it, that is something I care deeply about, like an emotional arc throughout the things. Ricardo, come back. I mean, fair. As I was in my notes, I was comparing it to C, which is a similar thing, which is it's a big setup, and I really appreciated it for the way it's set up, Canto 5, so we could get some of that exposition out of the way, so we can more quickly jump into things in Canto 5. But I think C also had like a stronger like emotional arc because you're dealing with Ishmael the whole time, and her emotional state. And we don't really have that. There's bits for all different characters, but yeah, I come back to like saying I care for that emotional arc, and it just wasn't really there in sweeper events. I was looking at it, like, I like Ricardo and it's fun and I like his place in the game, but I don't know if I'm okay with him not appearing if it made like a stronger, keeping the narrative tighter with the characters, if that makes sense. I like the Otis moments. Me too. It was very, very good Otis stuff. Super happy that Sichan appeared more. I adore her. Confucius appeared. Yeah, the ending. Cool ending. Even if it didn't like amount to much as like foreshadowing for the next one, it was cool. I wrote down, I'm not actually sure what I meant by this. I wrote down on-rail shooter. I guess I'm meaning like linearity, but they're all linear. What do I mean by that? It wasn't that long ago. I have no clue what I was saying when I wrote on-rail shooter. I guess there's something about like jumping from like Zilu to Ricardo to sweepers. Maybe there's a bit of whiplash with all these different bosses. You're the type to write notes and just hope you understand what you meant later. Generally, I too right. Generally, I do understand them, though. I'm just not sure what I meant there. What I wrote is, I guess my personal preference is for a satisfying emotional arc, and Sweeper feels more like an on-rail shooter. But I feel like they're all linear. I guess my biggest comparison would be like It and C, because they both set up, and I really appreciated what C did, but even if it wasn't for Honglu, like even if it's not a character arc, but a sort of like storytelling arc in it, I just don't really feel like we have a bunch of like, even if they're part of the plot, they're sort of like disparate events. They don't necessarily have like a logical climax, because then Confucius appears. But of course, like all this is in B. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy playing it. Music is great. The Heisho pack are my favorite like additions to the game. I've complicated feelings about the IDs, because there's so many characters I want to get IDs in the next Kanto. The Heisho pack are so cool. Sleepers is more spectacle focused. That's a good. I like that way of putting it. And then there was sort of the criticism that like the sweepers didn't. It was sort of pitched as the big sweeper thing, and then it didn't. There are a lot of theories about like Dante getting separated and like Dante being able to understand the sweepers that didn't necessarily like happen at all. Sweeper fight looked cool, but it was a win rate snooze fest. Yeah, it was, I guess, like spectacle over quality of the fight. Sleepers are just there to flex. They could put more than 12 units in the field. It did look cool. Although when I was doing it on like one of my mobile devices, it did have trouble with that fight. Oh yeah, and I forgot, it did get nerfed. I forgot about that part. That was interesting. Because I played it after the nerf, of course. It was interesting afterwards to go to like then go back and watch people who I know are good players play like the Heisho fights live, the unnerfed versions live, and struggle with them. I don't have much of an opinion because I didn't get to play the unnerfed versions, but with the way the gameplay in Limbus can be, I'm not against the nerfs. Because they could I mean, it's just the gameplay in Limbus itself is very snowbally, and the Heisho really seemed to, once they got going. I hit the grinding stage. Well, it was night for me, so I didn't have a chance to fight the non-nerfed versions. They're nerfed fast, yeah. Ricardo 2.0 was fun though. It's a little. I do think it's like it's a little mean to like start out a fight when it's your first time and you go in like with an all slash type team, and then you go up against Ricardo. I think that could be a little mean, but on repeat it's not. I think it was fun to play with different teams afterwards, particularly since you should be familiar. I mean, when I was going into it, I didn't know if Ricardo would be mixing things up too much, but no, it was similar to like the first one. Good burn team. Ricardo's my favorite character team of the Red Chamber. I have to say I did have fun with those comments. Okay, so I think that's it for the tier lists. Yeah, so not as... Oh, sorry, looking at the comments. Unless you noticed the very conspicuous purple silhouette, which I did. I didn't! I didn't! And then someone was like, she missed it. And I was like, wait, what did I miss? What do you rate the Cantos in terms of gameplay only? Each one is getting better. In terms of like main one, I would probably put like... It would probably go in order of like 7, 6, 5, 4. Although if I had to pick like one favorite fight, I still really like everything the Quixote trio does. And I don't think the Blood Fiend trio is quite as interesting as that one was. Music would be hard to pick. Probably not for the Millie songs, but like the one, it'd be hard to pick between like 6 and 7. Even though there's a lot that I liked about 5 in terms of the like whale song in the BGM. What's the Millie song ranking? I thought about doing it. I thought about doing it, but like music is so subjective. I can't really. Any sort of OST, like I have personal preferences. And they're also, exactly, I hate comparing things when they're like so fundamentally different. Like I like things for different reasons. I've called this kind of list like a, or somebody else called it and I liked it, like a vibe list. I vibe with certain things better, and I think it's fair. I don't have it on this one, but I think when I did the first stream I had the like Simpsons, I just think they're neat, image. There's always like, and it's how they're integrated into the game is part of it as well. I do feel like Your Patches of Violet is the most interestingly integrated. Yeah, the official release of Compass doesn't do it justice. The Heartbeat adds so much. Yeah, that's one where I've listened to like the fan mixes more, because it's also a little bit longer as well. Like build up is so good. But I really like Hero. And I like a lot of Runa music as well. I think my only like controversial opinion is, and I like all the songs, there's no dislike. My only controversial opinion would be as I don't rate Gone Angels as high as I think some other people do. That image in The Graduate took ingrained in your brain. Indeed, indeed. And I see people talking about the Dulcinea fight. I love being able to come back to that. I love being able to come back to that in Refraction Railway. And get to try it with different ones. It was very fun to like, after doing it properly in the Kanto, like doing the 3-turn kills with the Blee team. Chill in the City is still my all-time favorite. It's so good. I'm like, between it and Iron Lotus, it's... might slightly give it to Iron Lotus, but... We'll have another song in a few weeks. We'll find out. So I need to go grab my water bottle, but I'm gonna say... yeah, so that was about an hour. Sorry it's not as detailed as like the first one, but there's less to... I wasn't gonna give everything its own amount of detail that I did, but... Please go look at the previous one if you want like more details on some of these points, particularly if you want to hear me talk about Ishmael for an entire hour. I think it might be over an hour. So next up we're gonna do, after I get my water bottle, we're gonna talk about Dream of the Red Chamber and what that means for Canto 8. And I put like Canto 8 theories. But Canto 8 theories, if you're expecting like this is like what I think is going to happen, or like here's the twist with Honglu's eye, I don't have that, but I can talk about things sort of thematically, where I think that might go. But the thing I also want to say before I get into that is I will be talking about the entirety of Dream of the Red Chamber here. Including endings, including deaths. So if that's not something you want spoiled necessarily, I want to put a warning here. Are you cooked? I mean, it's up to you. It's up to you. It's absolutely up to you. I mean, I think we know from every other Canto that like even reading it doesn't necessarily spoil things. Yeah, no worries, everybody, please. If you don't want things, Dream of the Red Chamber is really interesting coming into it, because I think it's like probably gonna be the least read book, and you can see that in the discussions, the way people talk about it. Versus like pre-Canto 6, where like everybody knows, almost everybody knows going into it that Kathy dies, but here it's so much a big more mystery for people, and I think that's really fascinating. There's so much that can be done with it, but I think if people want to go into it without any sort of, without knowing anything, I would, that is super valid. So please go ahead. I'm gonna leave this up. And if you just give me 1 sec, I'm just gonna grab my water bottle since I forgot it somehow, and then we'll jump into this. Okie dokie, thank you. Let's just put the wiki page up so there's some sort of background. That's not the tier lists, and let me get my notes back up. I have a bunch of more, like, they're a bit disparate. They're sort of all over the place. I was writing some of these down while I was reading the book. They're sort of all over the place, but I feel like... Let's see. I have some quotes here as well to read. I said I was going to talk about this, but I guess the first big question when I do like sort of have an answer to is is Shichun going to live? Because I've seen that come up just so much. Again, I find it super fascinating that it's a mystery, even though, like, she does have an ending in the book. Even if I say yes because I need her too. He's a great character. I mean, both Limbus and book. But yes, I am also going to say I guess first big spoiler. Yao Baoyu is the reincarnation of a stone. Hopefully we chased everybody. I was afraid of spoilers away with that. Oh, Phoenix Wright. No, that was a joke. It's not a spoiler. First pages of the book. Okay, so I do believe she will read. Not just because she does live in the book, but because if we take the events from the book and sort of transpose those beats into the Canto, I think there's a lot of potential for what is going to be her big moment in the story. And I feel I prefer that to just she dies to like motivate Honglu to distort or break him or something. I think she just does like too much more interesting potential versus that. But of course now you can all I will put the clown hat on when she does when she does die. So her first big moment, so if you saw my other stream, I talked about how she's like kind of a background character for quite a long time. She doesn't participate in the poetry club. Well, she is but she's not she's part of it, but she doesn't write poetry. She spends most of her time on her own, painting or trying to paint. Her first, I forget exactly what chapter it is, but her first like moment, and is still probably one of her biggest moments in the entire story, doesn't come to like somewhere in the 70s, chapter 70s. It's quite towards the end, and she gets into an argument with, let's see, I guess I can point out the character names here as well. Where are you? Notable minor characters. There we go. Lady Yo Shi. Who's her sister-in-law? Or is it wife of Jia Zhen? And it's sort of the character that mostly appears as Sichun's authority figure, because her dad's like MIA until he dies, and Jia Zhen is not around doing much. So Yoshi kind of acts as her authority figure, and her first big moment is she gets into a big argument. The two of them get into a big argument, and Shichun sort of calls her out on the corruption of both households and says she doesn't want to have anything to do with them anymore, basically. Which I think is like the first time any sort of character like points out the straight up corruption. And after that, Shichun is a bit more of a character. She forms a friendship with Miaoyu, or Adamantina, and she hugely respects Miaoyu and calls her like, says she's like the most free person she knows and really admires that. And then Shichun decides she wants to become a nun and is very dedicated to it, and basically starts like begging Yoshi to let her do it. She cuts off a bit of her hair to show her dedication. She threatens to commit suicide if they don't let her. And they do eventually like compromise with her that she still has to stay in the house, but they'll give her a room dedicated to for her studies, and she can cut her hair short, but she can't cut it all the way off. Now I think but right now the Limbus Shichun feels sort of very integrated in the system that's being set up. She's not just participating in the family hierarchy evaluations, like she's in it to win it. So I think there could be like a really meaningful moment where she decides to like go against the family and choose to make her own path, to like turn her back on everything that she's like worked so hard for. She wants the respect of everybody. She wants the safety. And then for her to turn her back on that, particularly, it would be like such a nice contrast with Honglu, who at this point we know is sort of the like more go with the flow type. And I think if he just becomes completely resigned, accepting whatever the family wants him for or wants to do with him, for her to like see all the corruption, I do think Wei might not survive. But to go through all that and then be at the like precipice of winning or something, and then choose to walk away to forge her own path on the outside. There's like so much potential there. She's the most reasonable of everyone, so she will probably rebel. So that's my sort of thing. The other thing is when she becomes, I don't know if this character will appear, but Nightingale, who is... Nightingale is Dayu's maid, who sort of serves as her main maid. Let's see if she's here. Might not be. Oh, here. This is Nightingale. Yeah, she later becomes a nun to serve Shichun. After Dayu passes away, Nightingale is really affected by this, and spends a lot of time like not really sure what to do, and feels like she probably should have died with Dayu. Doesn't know what to do with her life, and like can't quite, blames it on Baoyu, but can't quite really figure out what she wants to do. And at the very end, when like Shichun is like, if you don't let me become a nun, I will kill myself. I think Lady Wang asks, okay, which of your, she asks Shichun's servants, which of you are going to go with her? And they're all like, we will, but like Lady Wang can tell none of them are actually that dedicated. But it's Nightingale who like gets down on her knees and begs to be allowed to go with her. So she's characterized as like one of the characters who has like some sort of spiritual awakening. Even if hers is a more minor one, Nightingale is, that chooses to like become a nun. But I do feel like, since we're talking about Shichun, we should talk about her characterization in the novel. Even though I don't think the Limbus version is really reflecting that, I do want to bring it up. I think it's important and interesting. And one of the first things you should bring up is, if you read it, you know about all the, or if you see my video, there's every character, all of the 12 beauties have a sort of prophecy that goes with them. Shichun's prophecy is called, it's either called like Spring's Vanity or the Vanity of Spring. And particularly in the sort of like academic writings about the novel and about her character, she's generally considered a sort of selfish character, and sort of that she's pursuing this life for self-indulgent reasons, which is definitely what it seems like in the novel a little bit. They point out that like when she's thinking about like nunhood, she says to herself, nobody else is doing it right, only I can do it right. And that she particularly wants to avoid the corruption of like other people. She like feels herself stronger and better than the others. And the fact that she admires Miao Yu, who is pretty clearly characterized as, even though she's seen as the ideal nun, like her characterization makes it clear that that's not really the case, that she's sort of too haughty, she too looks down on the other people. So this comes up a lot in the academic readings, but I do say like Limbus Shichun does not really seem to be following this characterization. I just think it is worth bringing up. If they just, maybe they will, this is just a part of the background character. I just think that's interesting, but I don't mind that they're not going in that direction. I do think like, I really, really like Limbus Shichun so far. Yeah, maybe more butler fixers. I'm glad that last season sort of broke the like three or four like Kanto story IDs, because there's so many characters. I want IDs. I want to see the like the butler, the servant, the maid IDs. if somebody is gonna die early on, we need to like kill somebody off. Since Shichun and Yeonchun have already been brought up, it does feel likely that the Four Springs at least should be around. Which I'm happy because I really like Tanchun. And Yingchun does feel like, as terrible as it is, does seem like a reasonable candidate for somebody to die fairly quickly. She has a miserable story in the book when she's one of the ones that gets killed. Her stuff made me really sad. But she ends up being married into to a very abusive man who, like, it's not just like emotionally abusive, but physically, like, freezes her, starves her. And she comes back to the family and she basically like begs them not to send her back. And that's when Lady Wang says, well, maybe it's just your fate to be unhappy. And Yingchun was like, what could I possibly have done to deserve this? It's not right. And that's when Bao goes, well, we gotta change that then. Here's my plan. And then they also, I think Lady Wang like laughs at him, but also tells him like, you're not allowed to tell your grandmother about this. And then Yingchun comes back a bit later and is like, if you send me back, I will die. And they do. And what do you think happens? It's not great. It's terrible. So I can see her, she is the, like, of the 12 beauties, probably the one with the least content, so it would be, like, accurate to the book for her to not survive very long. I mean, of course she does make it to, like, the end, to, like, I mean, not the end, but quite far in. But it would sort of, like, fit with this arc. Lady Wang is low-key sucks. She has her moments. She's one of the characters that it was hard to write about in the original video because she has these awful moments, but she also is sort of one of the more reasonable adults. I do give her she does some terrible stuff, but I do give her a little bit of credit right at the end when there's some bad stuff happening, and she does recognize it as being bad and tries to stop it. We might get into that in a little bit. But she is one that's just like, well, if it's fate, it can't be helped. We'll just accept everything. So that's about Shichun. Okay. Yeah, the stuff with the maids because of Golden, and she does. There are multiple people who die because of her actions. Golden is not the last. Looking at my notes. So one of the big questions I had while reading the novel was who's going to be the final boss? Which is very interesting because now I think we have a better idea. It's Granny Lu. I'd love that. I would love for Granny Lu to show up, especially because she does fit into the ending quite a bit. She has a pretty, excuse me, I'm going to cough. Granny Lu does have like a pretty important role in like a certain character's arc, and I like the role that she plays. I like her characterization. It's so hard when this cast is so big and there's so many characters I do want to appear, but for like the sake of the story, I can understand some being cut. I just compare it to like Canto 6, where like not even Wuthering Heights could have its entire cast. Before final boss though, about Jahun, I'll talk about it. So when I was reading, I was going through who's going to be the final boss, and I was thinking about biggest question, because there wasn't like an obvious answer. Even reading the entire book, there's not necessarily an obvious answer. And the Kanto bosses tend to like, they're not just like a boss, but they also represent some like larger thing of the Kanto, like Earl King. The whole fight. The mechanics are sort of about this endless cycle of pain that Heath and Kathy are inflicting on one another. And you don't even really win that fight. It sort of ends in a denouement. It's Claire or Kathy, which is the climax. And then Sancho versus Dad Quixote is sort of culminates in like the ideological fight of their two dreams, you know. So it's sort of, so what it comes down to, I think, with deciding who's the final boss, it's like, what is Honglu's arc, and what is the arc of the Kanto? I thought, like, the first obvious thing is to do, like, some sort of representation of the Jia family. But I don't know, and I was like, I didn't really like that. And, like, the Xifeng, who's one of my favorite characters, I find her one of the most compelling throughout the novel. I would probably be one, like, the easiest to... She is one of the most villainous characters. Responsible for a lot of deaths. And personally, I would like her to be... I do want her to have a fight. She's such a cool character. And she just feels like really easy to just like drop in the Project Moon world and make it like work. The only worry about like some of the themes, it's not really a worry, but I wonder how they'll handle it, is because like sexism doesn't really exist in the Project Moon world. And so much of this novel sort of is about gender roles, but we'll see. But I was like, there's so much they could do with Xifeng. So I want her to have like a big fight and a big moment. I thought about like, what if she was a final boss, but again, I couldn't think of a way it would like represent anything for like Honglu himself. What their two sort of like ideologies pit against each other would do. They don't have that much to like really do with each other. When I was reading it, I was thinking, she would be my choice for a character who joins Herman's group, except Dahon is already there. I think if you have like Ahab, Nelly, Xifeng, that's such an interesting combination. I would like to see it. I hope. The problem is also that Dahon hates Xifeng right at the very end. Like, tries to get revenge on her. He embarks on his own ingenious plan, and this is where I do give Lady Wang some points, because she actually tries to she actually interferes with it and helps things end up okay. One thing Xifeng does is she drives somebody to commit suicide by eating a lump of, I wrote this all in caps, a lump of gold. Which feels like it could be, that's something they could draw upon. And I was like, every Kanto has somebody being stabbed with the golden bow by this point. Well, almost everyone. Maybe we could extrapolate from that, even if it's she herself eat the golden bow. I don't know if that specific character will appear, but I'm like, maybe if like Xifeng stabbed herself or something, that could be interesting. My one thing is, I said this in other videos, the one thing I really want is I want her to be introduced the same way that she is in the book, where she's laughing sort of off screen before she comes in. It's so distinctive. Oh, I can't wait. I really imagine her not being in it because she's such an important character. But I really hope if she has a fight, I'd imagine it would be like an end of part 2, or even taking the same spot as like Nelly as like the pre-final boss. Do you think the final boss will be related to the authority of the Zhao family, or another more complicated party. So yeah, this is the big question, because I think it comes down to what is Honglu's arc gonna be, and how do we solve it in like sort of the role of Dayu. Because eventually I settled on, if I was choosing a boss, some sort of like representation of Dayu was sort of where I felt like the best climax for the novel could be. I don't have the quote on me, but there's I quoted it in the video. There's a quote about like Balyu and Dayu's like differing ideologies a little bit about ending parties, but it's also sort of about death, where Dayu would have rathered something that never happened, versus Balyu, who's at that point willing to accept that things have to end. It's like if you sort of like, and also like the imagery surrounding Dayu is so beautiful. I really want her to have like her own stage even. But then Limbus goes and introduces literally Confucius, which is such a funny answer. So he does feel like the most likely option for the big boss, because he's sort of, I mean, he's not just a representative of the family, but he's a representative of Confucianism, which is something that the novel itself is quite critical of. But where I do feel like Dayu is so important, I don't know. I feel like we'd have to build up to him being the final boss. He's either like second final boss or like final boss. It just depends at what point is tackling him a part of Honglu's arc. I feel like Honglu, addressing everything with Honglu could be the climax itself, or either it's a sort of like Heathcliff thing where we have Heathcliff's distortion end of part 2 and we deal with some stuff then, and then we're actually trying to like destroy the systems at the end. It really depends on that. And Honglu is like super fascinating to me after reading the book, because like what we've sort of developed with him is these themes of like detachment, nihilism, and sort of acceptance of suffering. But that kind of goes against some of the major themes that are present in Project Moon's work. It's like Runa is all about breaking the cycles of violence, about not turning a blind eye to suffering, about making this like conscious choice to have hope for a future, and to have a hope for a better world, like in spite of everything. And they're sort of characterizing like Balyu's or Honglu's detachment as like not a good thing, well, when it is sort of like where he ends up in the novel. And there's a bit right at the very end that really stuck out to me, which is once Balyu, once he becomes like partially enlightened but hasn't like chosen to leave the family yet, which happens after he completes the exam. That's sort of him paying off his worldly debts. He starts to become detached, and this sort of really upsets some of the other characters, particularly Aroma and Baochai, or Aroma Hua Shiren. They get really upset, and they find it a bit disturbing because there's some stuff happening, and they're like, what happened to the boy that would like cry no matter what, would do whatever he could to like make people feel better. Instead he just like looks on everything coldly. Like, yeah, this is not really a good thing here. I found it quite upsetting when it was put, when you're particularly being minded about what the character Balyu used to be. So Project Moon does seem to be going in this direction, that this detachment is not a good thing. I feel like he would be, I assume this is Datu, a part 2 boss or lesser part 3 boss. The Confucianism is the family's societal rot, but Baoyu's personal sin is his Taoist boost of detachment in response to it. I really like that. That's a very good way of summing it, and sort of how I feel as well. I do feel like I'd rather Honglu's arc be sort of the climax than the family stuff. And like Confucianism itself. They put like a lot of like pressure on it. I'm looking at it. Oh yeah, I was looking at my notes. Roland is wrong when he says that's that, and this is this. That's kind of like the point. You can't turn a blind eye to all this stuff, and even if it's a hard thing to do, you need to still do it and face it if we want to make a better world. So I do feel like one of the climaxes, what I think might be a climax is this fact that Honglu is not made, like, did not ask for anything from his contract. I feel like that's gonna change. Like, part of the climax will be him choosing something he wants for himself. And that might be what unlocks the new Durante power. And it depends what that thing is. I was wondering if, like, maybe because I've seen this like theme in anime, but just the want to live. You know, ikitai in death. I want to live. I don't want to just turn a blind eye, to just accept everything, even if that requires me to die. Deep down, no matter what, I want to live in spite of it. But yeah, there's a lot. These are sort of like the general themes about this, and then there's sort of this whole concept of flow that's sort of been becoming more important, and I think it's Canto 8 will be an interesting part to explore this, because we have this idea of flow. Generally, things are gonna end up alright for Dante because of this flow. We can trust that things will be okay. But what if this flow... Excuse me. What if this flow, this sort of fate, isn't something that we want? Can we go against it? Can we fight? What if the flow is what leads somebody like that, like Sichan to die, and we don't want to accept it, even if it's might be the good thing for us, for at least Dante. Determinism, yeah. I think there's just a lot of themes here. And we've already... So this is where I, like, don't have, like, strong... If you ask me what the deal with, like, Honglu's eye is, I'm just going, like, I don't know. I can only sort of talk about this general thing of, like, how I feel like the themes of the book could lead into some character arcs. The thing about... There's two things about Honglu's eye, which seems to be, like, reflecting his jade in the novel. One of the things, the theories that was sort of sitting on my mind for a while ago is this idea that, like, Honglu is the eye, because also his center icon is, like, an eyeball. And that would be a reason why he goes by Honglu and not Baoyu. Honglu meaning, like, Great Jade versus Baoyu. But there's something I really liked from the novel that surprised me was sort of Baoyu's rejection of the jade. People put his family, and also sort of like the culture, because all the monks respect it as well and are interested in seeing it. The princes all place like this immense weight on the eye, even that it's more important that he is. And that it's already sort of determined what his fate is going to be, who he's going to marry, because of the marriage of gold and jade. So he strongly rejects it. He actually tries to destroy it at several points. And I really like those themes. And I don't know how well that, like, fits into the idea that he is himself the eye. I want to keep some of those ideas in it, even though there is, like, evidence for it. There's some of the writing where, like, he quotes the, like, "I dreamed I was a butterfly" poem. He goes on to this thing about I forget exactly when it is, but saying, like, what if Dante's the clock and not actually, like, the body, you know? That does seem to be, like, leading in that direction, but I don't know. There's also this thing in the trailer that I noticed where it's Honglu is the one that's reading, it's Dayu's poem that he's reading, and the text color changes at a certain point, which just feels like a like the inner text turns red, I think, later on. And I don't know, but it feels quite intentional. I'm not sure if you know this, but was it Lete is one of the 5 rivers that flows in Hades. Which river do you think will make an appearance? That's another one where I'm like, shrug. We do know that there's characters looking for like the river of immortality. That's one of those concepts where I don't mind if it's not brought up. If you've read Arcorp Honglu's story, they bring up that Arcorp is gonna have some relevance to H Corp in the future, or at least the 4th pack, I should say. And that's one of those feelings where like, I hope that's an Intervallo thing versus the Canto, because there's already so much going on in so many characters. I've thought about who you could like cut, and it's hard. I mean, Baoyu, we already have Baoyu. Dayu and Baochai I feel like definites. Four Springs, I feel like you could maybe... I prefer Jiang Yun. You could maybe fold her into a character like Tan Shun, although I'd rather her be her own character. Especially since we already got a Shi. Miao Yu, you could drop. Xiao Jia probably might be too young. I want Xifeng. Maybe Friday I'll get to see her. At least I'll get to hear her. Liuan probably. Kuching is really fascinating because I imagine if she is around, she'll have died before the beginning. But the whole thing with like being the invitation to the land of illusion and her relation to 2 and 1, really, really interesting. And I like the whole mystery about her character. I feel like you could, and then there's a whole bunch of the servants I would really like to appear. All my top one, like I love Patience. You could probably combine a few. I can imagine a lot of the adults could just be folded into like some sort of idea of the adult. Like if it's just grandmother Jia, she sort of could like represent any sort of authority, even though I think they're all like really interesting and have their own important characterization. The difference between like Jia Zhang and Lady Wang. I would love them to have their own appearance, but just in terms of like time, I could see like just grandmother Jia representing most of them. Patience! I know, she's one of my top faves. So I really want her to appear. Particularly if Xifeng, their contrast is so good. Like, we could have a duo fight between both of them. Zhang Ling has such an interesting backstory. Aroma. I feel like she could, or Hua Xian, again, could have a really interesting role if you wanted to it. I'd worry, depending like what aspects of her you'd take and how she ended up, could possibly run a little too close to Nelly. But she seems like a very good like character to have to like reintroduce everybody to the family. Qinzhong, I put him in the presentation. Although since I was avoiding deaths, I wasn't able to say that he dies very early as well. But there's a lot of women. I think it just would be nice to give Honglu his childhood friend. And then there's like Jiao Rui, who not very important by any stretch of the imagination, but this whole thing, like dying to a mirror, feels too relevant not to bring up. Your ranking, original for Shifeng, Tanchun, Patient, Jiang Yun, Liwan. That's a good rating. Cause there's so many characters, again, I can't really rank them. But yeah, like Shifeng, Tanchun, Patience. And it's always hard to talk about Shifeng, cause like she has some abhorrent actions. But she has so much, not screen time, page time. It's hard to, and she's so interesting and compelling. It's hard not to, like, I think for anybody, unless you absolutely hate her, not have her high up. I also brought in one quote from, I didn't get to read. Oh, it doesn't look like, I didn't write down the page from this, but this is quite late. This is after Dayu dies. And Baoyu dreams about trying to go to hell. But I just thought this would be, let me move it over. This was kind of interesting to read. Unfortunately, I did not write down the page. I can't say exactly where this is or the exact context. But here it is. There is, replied the man with a superior smile, and yet there is not such a place. It is a teaching devised to warn mankind in its blind attachment to the idea of life and death. The supreme wrath is aroused by human folly in all forms, whether it be excessive ambition, premature death self-sought, or futile self-destruction through debauchery and a life of overweening violence. Hell is the place where souls such as these are imprisoned and made to suffer countless torments in their expiation of their sins. Search of yours for Lin Daiyu is a case of futile self-delusion. Daiyu has already returned to the land of illusion, and if you really want to find her, you must cultivate your mind and strengthen your spiritual nature. Then one day you will see her again. But if you throw your life away, and you will be guilty of premature death self-sought, and you'll be confined to hell. And then, although you may be allowed to see our parents, you will certainly never see Daiyu again. So that, I wasn't expecting like literal hell to actually be mentioned in the book, but there it is. I also like hearing that it was to do with wrath, which is fun to see after wrath is sort of like the associated Pekatula in LCB Checkup. Land of Illusion is also, I don't have a deep answer for like how it will be represented. It's definitely something. It's his ego, and it seems to be in his main artwork as well. But how it actually fits into it, where is it? Is it somebody's fathoms? Is it a place they've figured out? Oh, I wonder what be the egos now that they cut them to 4. That's a good thing. Let's see, I also have this tab that we can talk about abnormalities. So we are getting 4 ego. I think that's worth being brought up. Well, we'll learn them in a few days. I'm very curious as well, because you know I like to commission thumbnail art. But I want to see what the other ones are before I make a decision, because I haven't actually gone for like the main. Like when I was gonna get one for Canto 7, I thought I really loved Yearning Merkala. I was like, but I'm just gonna wait just in case. Just in case there's another cool one, and then I was like, no, I don't want the teddy bear. Do you think we'll have a Pekatulum distortion like Dongwang or Chrome? Or actually, there's potential. I feel like, I mean, cause like Shifeng, I would say her sin is like closer to pride, but she's so associated with fire. It's like she's almost guaranteed to be a burn unit. So you could do that with her, I suppose. Make her that kind of distortion. So we do know, let's talk about abnormalities or the ego for a second. So we have Honglu, and I mean it's not for certain, but I'm gonna I'm just gonna call it Discord for the moment. And then I'm not gonna say anything for certain, but it's likely that Sinclair will have the matching one because Sinclair is the only other character who is missing a Vav. And I think there's actually is quite a nice parallel, particularly with like if it is yin yang, that Sinclair is the whole like realm of light and dark theming. Let's say that. And then the three other characters who are behind, I believe, on Ego are Isang, Merceau, and Don Quixote. And so should be two of those. Don Quixote and Merceau have been paired up on the last two battle passes, so I imagine we might want to split them up. So that would be like, so we'd get like Isang and somebody else. Although Merceau I think is the one that's most due for any sort of content. They could do that, but I do think one of them will be Don Quixote, just because otherwise the battle pass will be entirely guys, and Project Moon does like to balance things. Like I think pretty much every banner has been a man and a woman. So I don't know if they'd like confine the battle pass like that. And then if we're limited to those two, I do lean a little bit more on them being different abnormalities. So the battle pass will be 3 abnormalities. Sinclair and Honglu will share, and then let's say like Isang and Don Quixote are both the other two. And then it's harder to decide because we've talked about in other streams like who's the potential. Star Luminary is one I think as potential. Where are you? Well, we already got Burning Duchess. When Burning Duchess actually got revealed, that we have like the burn and the slight bird theme, I wondered if it could be something related to Qifeng. But Qifeng is particularly Phoenix related. Wandering Mind, potential. Paper Chairman might not have relevance, but I want to see Paper Chairman. Then the other big one... Looking again in case anything else strikes me. Last moment. Sandolph. Grocery store giraffe. I want Paper Chairman so much. But Marriage Spider is the other big one, or Spider of Marriage. It's very fitting for sort of Honglu and particularly Honglu and Baochai, what goes on with them. If Heathcliff was on the battle pass, I'd be like maybe it could go to him, but I don't of the characters we have like Isang, Merceau, Don Quixote, I don't feel it's super representing them. Isang in the book, or the character in the Wings, does have a not great marriage, but this will probably be a rupture. Merceau would probably look pretty cool. Off topic, but I really want more Zion. Me too. Wandering Mind. Take a look at Wandering Mind. Wandering Mind, yeah, feels pretty relevant, story-wise. But then Phantom Pain or Tremor kind of thing. Skills with attack weight, this would be an interesting one. Gloom focused. I will see. After the last season with Teddy Bear being such a surprise to me. Paul does his total respectful can perform mitosis. Oh, the magic mango. Where are you? I love you, mango. Stuck in Heaven is also a good one. Since they tend to like represent not just like the Kanto but the sinners themselves, that's actually made it harder for me to like make any guesses about them particularly, because normally I do like to when I make those guesses, I did them for the last Kanto, I did like to assign them to certain characters, but I'm finding it much harder there. Or here. Are you drinking? And then I even wondered what they do. And then like what the season is. I don't even know what units I'm gonna bring to the Kanto with Honglu, because I want to use Rupture, but until he gets something better for the Rupture team, I don't know. And I feel like they might try and, since Heisho Pack made Rupture so much stronger and more fun, I don't know if the bosses are going to counter it. And then I'd like to use Gun Honglu. Attempt to bring a gun to a family hierarchy evaluation. Nobody will expect that. But then I feel like that's probably the most powerful Honglu, so are they gonna like try and counter it? Is everyone gonna resist Pierce? I haven't actually read like the newest Dante notes. I'm a bit behind on them. And then theme team Diechi, Butler, Emily. Oh, Butler. That's a fun one, doing a theme team. It's really gonna, what I pick is really just gonna depend. I'll change it up depending on like what the fight is. I said Seed of Light abilities next, right? It should be. It does seem to be where they're going, and then it would fit with maybe Hesed or Gavera. I mean, just sort of like aesthetically, Hesed does sort of suit Honglu more, and Gabura. Vyoshu is kind of Gabura coded, although I think it would be kind of like interesting to mix them up. What do you think the next ability is going to be? There's so much. You can go different ways. You can go different ways there, you know. So I feel like it'd have to be a bit stronger than like just sanity. Although that'd be interesting to like weaken like everybody's reliance on fluid sac. And then like Netzach. Oh yeah, full party revive. But that full party even, I've wondered. Grace is maxed out to 50. Oh, that would be that's interesting. That is interesting. That is very interesting. Because you just don't, the thing is you don't want to overlap with like safety, Netzach, whatever Netzach's ability is gonna be, because that's also likely gonna be, I feel like is more likely to be a healing one. We'll see, Floor of Social Sciences does have this like big team focus. You want to keep everybody alive and get bonuses for that. And then I don't even know what like Gibber's could be. I think like on tap mounted of corpses could be funny. Oh, but we're so close. I just think like I don't want to wait that long, but I do feel like Oh yeah, what if Wolfaware does what Hesse did in his LoveCorp Meltdown, make enemies more fatal turn damage? I really like that. I was trying to remember. I was thinking about something like that and couldn't remember. I like that too. Such an interesting meltdown. I want the music back. That's one of my... I mean, LoveCorp has amazing music, but that one's particularly memorable to me. Dark Flame for a turn. I just think like Malkut, I don't want to wait that long, but having some way to like rearrange backline and such. Being able to like manipulate that on hand would open up a lot of like potential, I think. Oh yeah, and then we will probably have, I mean, it won't be for a while, but Walpurgis, maybe in beginning of June, who's also a big mystery to me. Because we've still been, one of the things we've really been missing is, we don't have a Floor of Art ego. I don't know if we're gonna like wait more before we start going into the middle layers, because I think there's still a bit more to fill out. I don't think we've had anybody on information team, and we still need Floor of Art eco. I'm still a believer in Alryu and Faust. I think it fits it really well. I don't know if there's always the complicated feeling of like there's stuff that you want, but you also want, because power creep is canon, you also want to wait for it. Because I do want Crimson Scar Ishmael, but I'm also like, we can wait for a while. Let's wait for more power creep, so she'll be even more powerful. We had Violence from so that was like, that was more of technology. It's related to Ruina, I don't think we've had anybody on the information team in like the LobCorp facility itself. The Emerso ID, he's the most due, so I mean, I'm wondering about it, because I think some of the other characters that are most due, Rhodia's most due, but she was also in like early story ID, and I want to mix that up a little bit. Then introduce the first good Merso ID. He has good stuff. I'm using him a lot on Rupture, my Rupture team now. Oh, Letitia Cope. Oh, I love Letitia's ego, and having the gun is cool too. Paper Chairman. I'm just looking, I took my notes down. I think that I'm just trying to remember. I think I hit most of the main points I wanted to make about Dream of the Red Chamber beforehand. Again, it was a bit all over the place, because there's a lot going on thematically. It's a dense novel, and it's hard to know which aspects they want to even tackle. And there clearly is this like big overarching mystery with Honglu's eye, and like, where is Dayu and Bao Chai? Oh, one thing I should say about the trailer, and the trailer didn't reveal that much. One thing I do want to say that I was happy about, or the teaser, not the trailer, I should say, is one thing, and I mentioned this in some other stream that I was wondering about, is that beforehand, a lot of focus was put on like how terrible sort of Honglu's childhood seemed to be, even if he wasn't like fully elaborating on it. When I think like an interesting theme of the novel is like nostalgia. There's people that are stuck like sort of reminiscing about the golden days. And this came I read, wasn't I guess it was last year, end of last year, but I read Sacred and Terrible Air, which actually has a pretty heavy theme of nihilism and sort of like the dangers of nostalgia. How it's like not a good thought process to be stuck reminiscing about the past and how much better things were. You need to look to the future and how to make like the now better. I think that's really interesting. So I'm glad the trailer did sort of show that it wasn't all doom and gloom. The garden did. They did live in the garden, did exist. Things are bright and happy, at least somewhat. I embracing the past, building a future that I have thought about that. But having read Sacred and Terrible Air recently, it was very interesting, like, to see those themes sort of expressed in a, I mean, obviously in a very different fashion, but they were, a sort of discussion of nihilism is sort of one of the, what a, like, dangerous ideology it is a pretty heavy throughout the novel. It doesn't necessarily get resolved. But treating nostalgia as like a dangerous thing is not really a theme I've seen explored much. But really, really interesting. I think, and those parallels really stuck out to me. Not that they're parallel books in any sort of sense. And I don't even really recommend it if you're not already familiar with Disco Elysium. But those, it was hard not to like sort of compare them in some senses. I think that would be a communist revolution that happened in Canto. Wait, what? There's so much I don't know. Oh, I forget you can't see it. I was like, a couple times I've like thrown my hands up in the air. I'm sorry you can't see that. I don't know. Anything could happen. Anything. Honglu could be a rock. It's less that nihilism is an ideology in itself as much as the absence thereof with which to cope when terms to esoteric radical ideologies. Ew, that's a good way. I like that. I need to bring up the, you know, the nothing in life matters meme. I think about that one. I have to think about it. I have been thinking about how I'm gonna handle it because I know people aren't gonna want Dreamer the Red Chamber spoils. I guess I'm gonna have to put like I'll probably make like a pinned message that I'm gonna be talking about Dreamer the Red Chamber wholly. Throughout when I'm playing Canto 8. What's the meme? The like, I am 8 years old. I saw that one. I think that came from like a Madoka meme. Oh, thank you for the hands, EB. I'm just doing a last review. Kuching Jasha. It's hard for me to imagine being able to have Shifeng without Dalian in it as well. Because like his actions are so integral to like her development and her behavior, it almost would be like doing her an injustice to not show what kind of a person he is. I think Suipan could be like an interesting early boss, but again, I might be like, that's one of those ones where I'm like, you don't have to have him. I love the Lao Lao. On swear. Love Skybright, but her stuff was actually cried when reading about what happened to her in the novel. I mean, then there's, well, I guess everybody seems to be like full siblings here. Like Shichun is referred to as a sister instead of a cousin. She would also be like second or third cousin even. There's not really a reason for Zhao, I suppose. Oh yeah, Zhang Baoyu. Zhang Baoyu again is like big mystery as well, because everything to do with like dreams and mirrors is really important, but he also doesn't have like that much relevance to the book, so there's a lot you could do with that. Again, I'm wondering about like what it means for Honglu to like not be Baoyu. Oh yeah, when I'd heard of like Zhen Baoyu beforehand, and I was expecting him to have sort of a bigger role. It was like also fighting a mirror version of yourself that's like fits in so well with this. And I guess then the question people have had, I forgot to bring this up, the question people have had since we start to approach is, will Honglu distort? And again, that's one where I'm like, I can't talk in absolutes. I think there's an interesting concept here, because I don't know what like the sort of go with the flow, disattachment, nihilism, how that fits into distortion. Because if you absolutely don't care, like, are you even gonna listen? Ian and Carmen talk to him, but he just doesn't care. Because like you could do like Philip had this sort of like rejection, not wanting to hear things. But I'm not somebody who like feels like I don't have like an absolute this will happen, because it could play out in different ways. There's foreshadowing for it way back in Hell's Chicken, where Faust says like something could take Honglu to your very core, and then he would distort, and Honglu's like, I could see that happening. Oh yeah, ArtCorp Honglu shows that he does have a limit, even if it was mostly caused by his migraines. Oh yeah, I was excited to see that, because I wondered, it's another question, is like, is it possible even possible to break him? And yeah. ArtCorp will do that to you. Yeah, so my main thought about that point is I don't have an answer to the distortion question. Could go, I mean, if it happens, I want it to have more to it than like Heathcliff's did. Like actually having a fathoms, for instance. Again, that comes up to like the final boss. I did wonder if like Honglu... Sorry, I losing connection a little bit, so I'm a bit jerky. Oh, that fits in, because there's a lot of possible, like, even bosses to cover. Jiatu, Xifang, butlers, some sort of representation of Dayu. All potential, and we haven't... There's also, like, the melee track. I mean, we know there is one. As far as I'm aware... Yamato Kasai hasn't posted, like, a big preview. Like we had for Hero. There's one song that it could be. There's one song that I think it could possibly be that there's, like, a short excerpt of, but... It's not really much to go on what the entire like feel of the song is. I mean, maybe we could still get one. But I wondered if we had some sort of song that would like... I feel like a song representing like Dayu would feel very different from one representing the family, for instance. Oh yes, excuse me. Speaking of songs, Dayu actually plays an instrument in the novel. She plays, oh, what was it called? A teen? I think one sec. I think it's called, I think the modern term is this? Yeah. Yeah. She plays one of these, so I thought... whatever the melee song was, it'd be nice if it had this instrument in it. So gutin. In the book it's just called a teen though. And she plays it a few times, but not till quite late in. It's a string instrument. Oh, I don't think I remembered. As well as being associated with the ancient Chinese philosopher Confucius. Well, now we have to have it. Soda Honglu. I have uptied it to 3. It will be used. It will be used. I mean, it can be used for envy resonance, healing, crits. It's good on Gung Honglu, Full Stop Honglu. I mean, what else are you gonna use? Cavernous Wailing on a non-tremor team? Like, come on. Oh, what's Nuizhong? Is that the bell? Oh yeah, the bell is yeah, the bell. Not to my knowledge. I wrote down at some point I wrote down like a single quote that has something to do with a bell, but it's being used as a metaphor. A good question. I don't think there was anything to do with a bell in the novel, because I was looking out for that. What'd you think about getting less BP ego? I'm neutral. I think most battle passes have had like at least one ego that like aren't as good as the others. I guess why I don't like it is I don't like it for new players, because like being able to fill out even just a few ego is super useful. Super useful for them. And I mean, hopefully they're split, so like 2 on the free, 2 on the other one. And again, what it comes down to is like, just hope they're doing okay. I just always worry about overwork in Project Moon. Like, in my end, I'm like, I guess I'd rather quality over quantity. But especially after that animation, and against Trial is, and then the I'm okay with it since Thread and Spore is so expensive. I know there's stuff I'm not, even though I have a lot of thread. When I look at how much it takes to like do the VOBs, I was like, I don't know if I need thread spins for Merceau, Yearning, Rakala. The other two that would be in the past could be put. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I forgot that like they could still appear somewhere. So my sort of feeling is like it doesn't affect me that much, and but I don't like it for like newer players, and even like not good eco, I still think, yeah, they have a place for newer players, and it like you can use them for like throwing out resonance. Experience is still a problem. Yeah. They notice it so they can focus more on the Kanto enemy too, so I'm excited. Oh, we're so close yet so far. I think I'll do something similar to Thoracology. Oh yeah. Thoracology is also one of my favorite designs. But also I feel like every Faust ego is just so good. Yeah, there's the Guchin, the Red Chamber. Yeah, so I think that's the main thing. I just don't want to like forget anything. Because I've had so many thoughts, but it's hard to necessarily like... It's hard for me to like really put them all together coherently to talk about them. At least I hope this was somewhat interesting. To hear that. Probably as we're going through the Kanto, I'll have more to say about specific things. Like, yay Sifang! Yay Tanshan! Yay Dayu! Yay everybody! That happened in the novel. That did not happen. I have no idea what's happening. Do you have any theories on future Kantos? Well, there's a bunch of books I haven't read. I haven't read Hellscreen yet, which I know it's not very long. I was actually thinking, because I did enjoy putting together the Dream of the Red Chamber stream, I thought, and I made a joke about, somebody was like, that's a long video. And I was like, don't worry, the Hellscreen video will be longer. But I thought maybe, because it's like a short story, maybe I would do something for Hellscreen again, but do it more on like the author's works in general, because I haven't found as much literature like just focused on Hellscreen. It tends to be like more about the author himself. And I'm like, that could be an interesting exploration. You can read the entirety of Hellscreen in the creepypasta wiki. I forgot about that. Yes, I've heard of that. I don't know like how many translations exist, because that's also interesting. I do enjoy like just reading about translation. But next, I also want to, I haven't decided what I'm gonna do. Depends like how busy everything is. But I want to go back and read Crime and Punishment, because that's one of the big ones I'm missing, and I would like to read Dante's Inferno itself, because I also haven't read that. And since Hellscreen is a shorter read, I think it's a good opportunity to go back and do stuff, because you have a lot of missing information there. Yeah, about Kantos in general, it's just like I don't have anything like specific. I mean, I thought about Faust being the homunculus since like before Limbus came out, and I'm still sort of sitting on that, but I haven't read Faust itself, so I can't really comment about that. Yoshu Merceau. Have read The Stranger, but more than once, but it was a while ago, so I don't really want to. That's one of the works that I like has so much written about it I guess in English particularly, like there's a lot of, obviously there's a lot written on Dream of the Red Chamber, but it's less accessible if you only speak English. But The Stranger is a bit more intimidating for me to feel like getting into, because I'm always like worried about getting the stuff wrong and not being, I never feel like I'm educated enough on it. I really want to do a lot of reading. So I'm not ready to like get into that with The Stranger yet. Beat Chuggers, your work in Marrying the Literature is very admirable. Thank you, thank you. I like it. I guess I'm an academic through and through. I like it. It is, looking at research paper is a hobby. It is generally something I like to do. And I'm grateful to Limbus, and I'm grateful to everyone here for like being able, for encouraging it and asking questions. And then I have read the Odyssey, but more than one. I've read the Odyssey twice and like the Iliad 3 times for at different points in school, different classes. Yay, humanities. I still believe we would love reverse for just for that. I will. Which one is your favorite Sinner book? There is a recency bias here, but I really love Dream of the Red Chamber. Again, it's a hard to compare just because it's so dense, and I've had so much to chew on with it, but like I genuinely love the characters and the themes. I also really like, well, there's so many. I mean, you're asking to pick out favorite classics. I loved Wuthering Heights. I thought it was hilarious. Damien sticks out to me. I have not read Moby Dick. That one, the lead up to Canto 5, I was like, I can't do this on top of school. I can't read this book on top of everything else I have to read. Also, the seasons were a little bit shorter then. But it's, the one thing I will say is, like, by saying Dream of the Red Chamber is my favorite, is I just want to, like, emphasize that it is, I know the length is intimidating, but it is, like, I would not call it as intimidating a read as you might think it is. I found it very readable. Obviously there's like a lot of cultural stuff that you might not be as familiar with, but there's so many resources to it, and a lot of it is fun. A lot of it is just fun. And Baoyu is like such an endearing protagonist to follow. I mean, I guess that's why I'm using the floor of literature music. Okay, so unless there's any more questions, I probably will head towards finishing up there. I feel like I'm definitely gonna have missed stuff, but I hope people maybe got something out of this. There'll obviously be more to be said when we actually get to the Kanto, but very close, very close. Excited for the proper trailer on Friday. Tomorrow, I guess the internet held up. Hooray. Tomorrow I'll be continuing with Blueprints, and I want to do another one on the weekend. And then it'll be the Kanto, which I'll be doing the same way I normally do it. Each like part I'll do in like 2 different streams. And then depending like how Blueprints is going, I don't want to have to like drop it for the Kanto. And just like depends how busy I am with other stuff. So maybe we'll can fit in some Blueprints streams on the weekend. But thank you, everybody. I'm really glad to like that. No, you're great, Pills. Thank you, everybody. And hope you have a good rest of your week. And I will see you reaching around my phone with my tab. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.